So it is Saturday, so tonight we're going to have a Transformer Slag podcast Saturday night live stream on YouTube, so be sure to swing by at 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. But before we do that, let's do a Transformer Slag podcast Patreon listener question. We have a whole bunch of them this month, and we're slowly getting through all of them, so thanks for all the patience of all the patrons that have been submitting all these really great questions. And we got one here from Space Ghostal, and Space Ghostal wants to know, how many G1 Transformers have survived? Are they getting rarer as time passes? Thanks for everything you do, Space Ghostal. So pretty much what the question is asking is the original Generation 1 1984 to 1990, wiggling into 91 Generation 1 Transformers, how many of them still exist? Well, it goes to the old ASDT, as the collectors call it: access, supply, demand, and timing. Because when you get into how rare something is, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's valuable. There's a lot of one-off stuff that's made that, while it's rare because it's one made, doesn't necessarily make it desirable and as a result valuable. But also in terms of like his first part of his question, how many Generation 1 Transformers have survived? It's such a weird thing with Transformers because it was one of the first toy lines to really get a strong initiative of reissues, which kind of gucked up the market in a lot of ways in terms of what is legit and what isn't. All the time I have people contacting me, showing me like something, going like, is this like the reissue of Skids or is this like the original? And we have to like look at date stamps and if weapons are certain chrome and the way that they're broken off of the sprue, if it's, black paint or not. It gets pretty crazy. But in terms of the original run of how many have survived, I kind of break it into two parts. We look at like 1984 to early 1987, and then the rest of 97 up to 1991. And the reason why I break it into two parts is because while 1984 to early 97 is arguably the early stuff, it's also the most popular stuff that was bought in the millions. There is millions of G1 1984 and later, rub stamp 1985 sound waves out there. There is millions of Bumblebees and Optimus Primes and Prowls. Now, how many of them have survived in perfect condition is a whole different story. Obviously, a lot of them has been broken or worn out, or pieces are missing, or, sometimes just have paint wear or sticker wear. Sometimes like the best question that we could really ask from this is how many have survived in perfect condition, and that's a whole other story. That's why, like, when it gets into the market of, mint and sealed box ones and sealed complete box ones, that's where it gets a little more rarer. But then it falls into the other part of access, supply, demand, and timing, which is how many people really want to have mint in box G1 stuff when they actually rather have it loose, complete, that they could mess with. Transformer fans are a little different than most, I guess we could call it, speculator collectors, where, I got a mint in box sealed G1 Prime. It's a very small market of people that really care about that and are willing to pay that big, slice of the money. When we're talking the rarity part of it, that's where like it goes back to, again, the ASDT, because there's a lot less, let's say pretender shells than there is sound waves, or, let's take a random mini bot from, wave through, let's say pipes, right? There's definitely way more, G1 pipes from 1986 than there is pretender shells of, let's say, landmine. But there's more people that want 1986 pipes than they do a pretender shell landmine. It's just how it is. Access, meaning the ability to find it. eBay being the best example of that. It's very easy to find that stuff, so it's not really rare if it's a click away from eBay. Supply, how many are out there? Well, there's way more pipes than there is landmines. Demand, very important. How many people want landmine as opposed to pipes? More people want those 1985 to 1986, some 1987 characters over that of the later wave guys. And last but not least, timing. Timing determines the value of stuff, because that pipes might have a demand, but then a reissue comes out and it creates a different kind of supply. It's not the original print run of it. It's not the original 86 figure, but it creates a different set of supply that's unique to the Transformer world that then affects the demand and increases the access, the ASDT, access, supply, demand, and timing. So it kind of messes with everything. But that's, when we talk about the Transformer finance videos, and we jump all over the place with how, the value of stuff goes up and down like crazy. It's all because of those little things, Let me give an example. Like, let me think of one that was unique. Titan's Return Perceptor. That was a very valuable Titan's Return figure. Number one, access. Didn't have a lot of access to it because when it was in retail, it was a late wave figure. Didn't show up in a lot of stores. And then the only other way would have been eBay in the secondary market. Supply, again, not many of them were out there in the secondary market as a result of that, and the access going back to it was, unfortunately, just eBay, or maybe like some of your online stores. The demand, well, the demand was huge because at that time, it was probably the best Perceptor figure you could get that was a retail figure outside of third party. So the demand was very high. But then timing. At that time, it was the best Perceptor figure. Then the Studio Series 1 hit the market, and now the demand for that Titan's Return one has completely diminished. Still up there, because it's still a late wave figure, and completists might still want it, but now the demand for it is not as strong as it was, dare I say, a year ago or 2 years ago. So it has a big influence on that. And going back to the beginning of the question here, how many G1 stuff has survived? Not as much. Definitely not. A lot of it has survived in bits and pieces. But when we're talking 100% complete and great condition, it's a very small number. Even me with my near complete Generation 1 collection across all three regions, aka USA, Japan, and the UK or European region stuff, with this and that of South American here and there, I'm still once in a while upgrading. I might get, like out of nowhere, I have like literally 1984 up until I want to say 1989 is pretty complete, my collection, with little things here and there missing in terms of like accessories and stuff like that. But I might get, a loose complete or even a loose G1 Mirage 1984 that might have better stickers than the one I have. Not all of my figures are pristine 100% out of the box perfect. They were just built through many years of collecting, and still to this day, because it's always a chase to find a better version of what you already have in terms of condition. And that's the problem with Generation 1, especially 1984 and 1985, where a lot of those were pretty fragile and kids played with them. So not many of them survived in perfect condition. I think that would be almost like the better way to word the question, maybe in a lot of ways, is how many of them survived in perfect condition? Because there's tons of it out there. There's still to this day, I'll still find Pretender shells, Target Masters, on the odd case, I'll still find 84 to 86, 87 G1 stuff in the wild in the secondary market. But how many times do you find it complete? That's why weapons are so valuable in the secondary market almost as much as the figures themselves. Like a loose, incomplete G1 Wheeljack might be like $20. A 100% complete G1 Wheeljack with all its missiles, its shoulder cannons, its little spoiler pieces, everything there is sometimes $70, $80, $100. Why is that? Because the accessories almost fill the difference. I remember I had this argument with a guy at a convention. I don't want to mention his name. He's quite a handful for us Montrealers here at conventions. But one of my buddies had a Generation 1 6-shot, 100% complete. And when it's 100% complete, we're talking just the two guns. But he had 100% complete G1 6-shot, and he was asking $80 for it, Canadian, which is probably a steal still by today's standpoints. And the guy wanted it cheaper, and then we were like saying like, look, buddy, like, to get a 6-shot with both of his guns is hard to get, like it makes up almost value. And then he's like, well, then sell it to me without the guns. You know, like you have people that like think like that, you know, take away the guns and then sell it to me for $50, you know, like you got crazy stories like that. But either way, the point is that a lot of, you know, it's tough to say quantifiably how many 100% complete G1 Transformers are out there that have survived, because we also fall into the problem of, you know, guys like me and a lot of other guys who we have massive collections, and, you know, those collections are not really like on, like there's no population report, you know what I mean? No one has ever made a strong effort to kind of create a population report. Maybe that's something for someone that could, you know, put that out there on the internet. I don't know how many people would want to participate. I probably wouldn't even be one of those who participate, but, you know, it's something that, like, you know, to try to see like, well, just how many 100% complete in certain condition G1 figures are still out there, you know, in those population reports. But that kind of stuff is kind of, you know, hard to tabulate, and how many people want to participate and give that kind of information out there. And that's why that kind of stuff really doesn't exist. But I mean, when I just go to cons and just pay attention to what's out there and what's for sale and everything, the G1 bubble doesn't shrink as years pass, primarily because, you know, oh, hey, like there's X number of these amount of G1 stuff. But then some guy quits the hobby and then a whole bunch of it just floods the market. I don't want to name someone, but someone that I know very close started unloading a lot of his Generation 1 collection. And, you know, all of a sudden, all this 84, 85, 86, 87, 88, 89 stuff starts hitting the market 100% complete. And then all of a sudden, it's, you know, the supply is replenished again, where it might have been only one or two guys on eBay, and now there's more people selling them. So it's all over the place. It's kind of hard to really know how much is out there, how much is 100% complete, how much has survived, when stock of it just keeps popping up. The only one that I could really feel that we could probably confidently have a number, and again, it's thanks to mint and box collectors and people who grade stuff, is just those guys, because that stuff we do know is pretty finite. There's not a lot of it out there. But then again, it's not that valuable. It's like, you know, it's literally like a handful of guys that really are going out of their way to pay the big money to get that stuff. And I feel that the Generation 1 money train is slowly leaving the station, so to speak. Like the money that could be made from Generation 1 stuff is slowly starting to dissipate, because more people rather, instead of paying big money to get 100% complete Perceptor or Metroplex, and I'm talking Generation 1 80s, you know, and even like some of those Pretender shells, they rather just wait for an official, better, you know, Hasbro version in the modern era. And sometimes even they rather pay that same amount of money. Most people rather pay, you know, 3 digits for a masterpiece than they rather 3 digits for the original. And that's kind of the market that we're in today, because people look at other toy lines. Like, let's say you're someone who loves Marvel characters. You rather own a Hot Toys Captain America or something like that, or an SH Figure Arts, or something that's a really great representation of that character, or Marvel Legends even, excuse me, representation of that character, as opposed to, oh, here's his Secret Wars 1984, his first release, you know, 100% complete or mint on card. Yeah, there's a historical value to it, but people really want the best representation of a character physically. And Transformers is unique in itself too, because of the engineering part of it too. People want articulation, transformation, accuracy to how he looked on the screen. You know, we're a very unique hobby compared to a lot of other toy hobbies, and that really bleeds into the, you know, this answer too. It's a big question. It's something I feel like I could keep going on and on down the rabbit hole, because again, it dives into that ASDT so many times, over and over. It's a conversation that when you're sitting at a convention with a bunch of other dealers for 8 hours and let's say a day, you know, a 1-day show, it's a conversation. You just sit down and you're sitting there for 8 hours with the guys, just talking about business or talking about, you know, the market and how stuff moves up and down. And you just fall down that rabbit hole of that discussion, because there's always new flavors of the month. There's always new stuff coming out. But I hope that kind of answers it a little bit. I hope it does. This is one of those questions that I feel like there's more meat on the bone to answer, but it's something that it'll also change over time, the answer, because, in 2 years, it might be a different answer for generation 1, and where it's at and how it'll be. The 25 to 35-year-olds right now didn't grow up on G1. They grew up on late G2, Beast Wars, so that's the new market. And what a surprise, that's what we're getting in terms of reissues right now that are targeted in that demographic at Walmart. So it is what it is, like I always say. But thanks once again, for a Patreon listener question from Space Ghostal, longtime patron. If you want to be like Space Ghostal and join the Patreon, help support the podcast, let us know we're doing a half-decent job here in the Transformer Slag podcast world. Patreon.com/Protoman, or check the pinned comment or the description below. And check out all the cool stuff you could get if you join us. And I hope to see you all tonight, Saturday night, for the live stream. We'll take some super chats from the fans, recap kind of the limited news we got tonight, and just relax and enjoy our hobby and rock out with the robots in disguise.